I want to have a chat about streaming gear for a moment, based on a comment from Francisco Aguilar here. The question is, Epos, do you think that streaming gear has plateaued or is close to? I try to think of how much more companies can innovate, and I'm struggling because I feel like they hit all the right notes for us creators. And then they follow up by saying, in all seriousness, Elgato has led the movement in streamlining, and other companies have kind of, followed in their tracks. But how does that, I guess, allow for competition? So there are two things I want to discuss in this conversation. Has streaming gear plateaued? I'm going to say that the answer is mostly yes, but also no. So the issue is that it comes down to what problems there are to solve. If we think about the core problems that needed solving for streaming to be possible or doable or viable for independent creators, we needed things like affordable cameras that were high enough quality to broadcast and connect with our audience, ways to capture and stream our gameplay without massive performance impacts or expensive computers. We needed ways to have alerts and interactivity with our audience, things like that. All of the core problems that needed solving, from basically taking what was 10 years ago mostly broadcast and enterprise gear and making it more accessible on the consumer side, most of those problems have been solved. There's still going to be smaller problems within that to be solved. For example, you can get into the nuance of, well, now we need HDMI 2.1 capture cards. We need capture cards with G-Sync. We need capture cards with this and that. And that's fine. But the core problem has been solved. We have reached the point of diminishing returns where 99% of people have what they need available. I think there's going to continue to be problems to solve, and there's still going to be new, exciting gear, and the formats are going to keep changing. For example, as I just talked about in my video that went live yesterday at the time of recording or streaming this, AV1, the OpenStream video encoding codec that is going to be super high quality, that is just around the corner in terms of like streaming it to Twitch. Twitch has been heavily invested on making it happen. We can finally record with it in OBS Studio, and we are reaching the point where the demand for encoders is here. It's going to be coming soon. So then that's going to be a new generation of gear where we start seeing the evolution of new codecs. And we haven't really seen a codec paradigm shift in like 15 or 20 years because AVC or H.264 has taken over, and all the successors to it have been way too licensed up and all of that, and patented and everything, so that it wasn't really reasonable to use. Like, there are plenty of streaming sites that still can't use H.265. It's a whole mess. So we're going to see gear in that category take off. We're going to see more advanced, I think we're going to see a lot more kind of unified workflow tools like the Roland video switcher I showed, which is not a new concept. Video mixers have been a thing since the dawn of time for broadcasts and things like that, but to have them on a more accessible level for more indie streaming kind of stuff is going to be really, really exciting. And I think we're going to see more products in those categories. But I think what we're going to see in terms of the next stage of innovations, it's mostly going to be companies kind of locking down on their ecosystems. Like Elgato was the first one to go the whole Apple ecosystem route. And they're doing, once the Stream Deck came out, it was kind of game over for a lot of market share in terms of people being like, okay, well, now I have the Stream Deck, it works with everything. And so the Stream Deck controls my lights, it controls my camera, it can control my capture card, it can control all this. And so Elgato continues to release new things that feed into that ecosystem. We're starting to see AverMedia kind of jump into that ecosystem, and I think more companies are going to do it. Razer's kind of doing it with the Synapse stuff, but that's the worst part of their products, so take it or leave it. But I still think there's room for competition, because there's just always the need for competition. Like right now, there are a lot of people who just don't want to buy Elgato products because either they've had a bad experience with them, they don't like their marketing, they just don't want to deal with them, and so they'll go with AverMedia. There's a lot of people who feel AverMedia is just like a knockoff Elgato brand, even though AverMedia has been around longer, and they prefer to go with Elgato, or they want the ecosystem and things like that. And we're going to start seeing a lot more cheaper products. My most popular gear coverage videos recently have not been the Elgato products or the expensive microphones or the fancy stuff. It's been the $5 capture card and the $20 webcams and things like that. So we're going to see a lot more push for affordable and cheaper capture cards as the people try to drive the bottom line down more and more, while the better known companies are going to innovate in the more kind of expensive and niche feature set places. Like, we still need DisplayPort capture cards, things like that. Now, this came up, this company, Streamplify, whatever, came up in my Discord server because they are basically trying to offer their own ecosystem of streaming products right out of the gate. So they're coming out of the gate with 3-4 different products that very much look like, you know, this looks like the Evermedia PW313. It's a 1080p 60 webcam. Crystal clear video quality. Big doubt on that one. RGB microphone, a ring light for a phone for some reason, and then a standing green screen. That's going to be a knockoff of the Elgato or the newer one. But we're going to see a lot more companies like this pop up where it's just going to be focused on the cheaper stuff and things like that. These El Cheapo companies are going to be massive in this space. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like, it's hard to describe because they're, so I'm breaking out the yellow pad. Since we're doing this live, we got a legal pad. I'm going to draw some circles, okay? So we got 3 circles. I know it looks like a butt. In the innermost circle are the top 1% of streamers. The people who are full-time streamers who, if some 3,000 capture card comes out that solves like 1% of their problems, they're going to buy it. They have all the gear. They have everything they could ever need. And most of it's delivered free from the companies. And it's fine. Then this second, much bigger circle is streamers. These are just streamers in general. People who live for Twitch or YouTube or whatever. You know, they live and die by the drama, the information, everything that goes on. The people who are core involved in streamer culture. And then the outer circle is just people who want to stream. Just people. Gamers, educators, random people. They're just people who want to stream. This massive circle is the people who buy the majority of the products. But they don't buy the expensive stuff. They buy stuff from these El Cheapo companies. And these random no-name companies that the core circle I've never heard of are going to be the people who are buying their streaming gear at Walmart or Best Buy are going to have heard of. So these companies take off with the outer circle, whereas the inner circle are like, you only use Elgato or Evermedia if you're a real streamer. And then the inner circle who doesn't care at all what gear they stream with because they have the best gear and they don't think about it anymore. And so that's where these people are going to go with. Someone said it's funny calling something a newer knockoff because its products are also knockoffs. Yes, the amusing thing is though is even when newer knocks something off, it's usually they're the first one to like start up the factory or whatever with the patentless design, and then they're the ones who other clone companies end up cloning off of. It's kind of funny. The flood of crappy products is going to suck, but if it drives down Elgato's prices, it's going to be good for anyone. So basically they're faster in reverse engineering. Yeah, that's like Newer's entire business model. Honestly, I don't think the flood of crappy products sucks. It sucks from like a perspective of the reviewer, like of me trying to sort through it all and getting requests to review every single $5, $10 webcam or capture card. And I just logistically can't keep up with it. And most of them are crap and it's hard for me to care about them. And I can't market videos on them because they're all like, I got so many requests. So here, hold on. If I could give everyone what they wanted, every single one of these capture cards, which is very clearly just the can't link rebadged and rehoused over and over and over, I'd make a video on. But I literally cannot conjure up enough titles and thumbnails and reasons for a viewer to care to just keep covering every single one of these because they're the same capture card with some minor differences in latency and supported specs and whether it screws up the audio and turns that into mono, whether it lies to you about 4K or not, whether it lies to you about being USB 3 or not. I just can't. It's impossible. It would be terrible. Even though it was one of my best performing videos over the last couple years, I can't just keep making the same video over and over because I have tried replicating that video's success. It doesn't really work. It was a right time, right place kind of thing. Some are rebrands, some are knockoffs, some are the original that someone else rebadged. There are clones of clones of clones of clones. So that part sucks. But the fact is that you can walk into Walmart or Amazon. You can't walk into Amazon, but you know, go into random stores and find these on the shelves now is incredible. It's no longer, hey, I want to use a camera to do a broadcast for a school event or whatever. What do you recommend? And I have to go, how much time do you have? Here, you need this list of super technical things that you don't need to know. It's literally HDMI into this, plug this in, turn on Zoom, you're good to go. That's incredible. It's just a lot to sort through. And then people want to get the best, and they ask me what the best is, and either they can't afford the best or they don't want to hear the explanation of why it's the best, and then suddenly they don't care anymore, and they just buy what their favorite streamer recommended anyway, and I'm like, why the hell did you ask me? This video is brought to you by Riverside.fm, my new favorite podcast and video recording platform, and what I will be using for future episodes of my Behind the Streams podcast. Riverside.fm is used by Gary Vee, Guy Raz, Spotify, Disney, and many more creators. It records audio and video locally on each participant's device and uploads these local files automatically to the Riverside dashboard. And ooh man, the recordings look like they came straight out of camera, which is bonkers and a huge step up from what I was previously using. No more coordinating recording with your guests or anything like that, as it's all really done for them. You can receive separate audio in uncompressed 48 kilohertz wave and video up to 4K tracks for all participants. And by all, I mean all. Up to 8 co-hosts or guests are allowed, which is wild. Riverside uses progressive uploading so that it uploads while the show goes on, so you can download your files within seconds of hitting stop record. With the Magic Editor, you can save hours of editing work with a few clicks. Change your size, positioning, backgrounds, layouts, add a logo, and more. Plus, you can export the video ready to upload to video sites and download a transcription in seconds as well. Guests can even join from iPad and iPhone too. Did I forget to mention the cool part? Riverside.fm is also a streaming tool, meaning that while you're recording, you can also live stream to most major platforms, which is pretty neat. But streaming does not get in the way of recording. It is a recording first platform with quality as its focus, which I can really appreciate. Plans start from just $7.50 per month. Go to riverside.fm/EposVox and use code EposVox to get $15 off a plan today. But yes, so I agree that we're gonna... Actually, I don't agree. But his second point about, Elgato kind of leading the charge and AverMedia and Razer kind of going a little bit behind and things like that is mostly true. But at the same time, we're seeing so many more companies that are big companies that don't do streaming getting into streaming products and actually doing it decently. The AverMedia capture card was great. EVGA has been pumping out great capture cards. This is the XR1 Pro they just announced. My review of that should hopefully be up Monday if I ever shoot B-roll and finish editing it. I think we're going to see some competition in those kinds of spaces. It's just a matter of how much it matters, because we've also seen companies like, say, HyperX, who started doing goofy stuff, or even I think it was Asus that released the deodorant mic at first. Their first iterations into this more gamery gear kind of flopped. And so there's a lot that could go wrong at the same time. I don't think there's little room for innovation, but innovation can really only go as fast as it's practical to keep up with the technology. Yeah, so the speed of innovation is definitely going to slow down, because it was I drew 3 lines. Again, you can't see this, it doesn't matter, but I like drawing examples, and I don't have an easy way to do that on a mouse without it looking absolutely dog tier. So this is where home streaming was in 2011. Absolute trash. All we had was gameplay and music and Adobe Flash Media Encoder or a pirated copy of Wirecast, and played Call of Duty 4 to some radio rock music. And it was fun. It seemed like it was the cool new thing, but it wasn't great. At the time, this is where broadcast was. Cameras, productions, assistants, etc. So there was a massive leap to be had to go from where it was to where broadcast was, and now up a little bit more to where everything has kind of normalized today. But then that curve is not going to continue to be steep. There's nowhere else to really go other than in production value. So I think the next bubble, if we call it a bubble, it's not something that pops, so I don't know that bubble's the right word, but the next wave, the next big thing with streaming is going to be on the production side. And I'm really nervous to say this because this has already gone terribly wrong on YouTube. But we got the gear side down, and that side, those companies are going to continue to make new things and exciting things and be profitable, and surely someone will have good ideas like on-lens teleprompters that coordinate with your streaming software and all sorts of little stuff. But I think the next big companies or people that are going to come up with exciting things are going to be on the production side, on producing good shows, on building out a media empire, so to speak, where you have a consistent production from a live stream to a video series to a TikTok to whatever, to do the kind of unified things that a lot of streamers do, but not all of them. A lot of them really struggle with that, and to just produce better and higher produced content. Now, I said I'm nervous about that because that leads into the rabbit hole of where the previous round of YouTube gaming production houses went, which was the MCNs, Machinima Respawn, Rooster Teeth, like all these companies built up really, really quickly back in 2011 with all of this money coming in from YouTube and this new exciting thing, and then fizzled out or like exploded in a bad way only a few years later. And I don't want to see that happening with the streaming bubble just leading the new charge, but I do think that's where the innovation's going to kind of come in for a little bit. So you're saying I need to launch a company that focuses on product geared toward production value. Yeah, software. Like, I think right now the most underrated piece of software for your stream is Stream Elements. And I feel ridiculous saying that. They're not paying me. They've never paid me $1. I don't owe them anything. But to have this unified code-free, although you can code your stuff if you want to, workflow where you can use, all of these overlays that interact with each other and do all these advanced things that you can then send to any copy of OBS is pretty crazy. I think something like that, where you have the flexibility of building really dynamic and changing layouts and all of that stuff, like that is the future. That is what Streamlabs wanted to be. And then they fell down the money hole of, oh, well, we can just release generic layouts and charge money for it. And they kind of flopped with it. That's what Streamlabs wanted to be. Stream Elements is kind of doing it. I don't know that they're really, like if I was them and I had like an influx of cash or investments or whatever, like I would be putting more money into figuring out how to put together these more crazy layouts and make them more accessible to streamers while also making them different. And I think it needs to focus around purpose-driven content. And that's where the market is going right now anyway, is purpose-driven content. Some of the most successful streamers are doing things like hosting specific game shows and, having these specific narrative things to tell a story and have a purpose. And obviously you still need your casual just chatting streams or whatever. But I think for the core part, effectively, like if you think about like a sports broadcast, a broadcast of the Super Bowl, you have like 2 or 3 hours of pre-show radio or ESPN commentary or whatever. And then you have the thing, and then you have the halftime show, and then you have the thing, and then you have the after the fact thing. That is effectively what a stream is. You have your core thing that you're going to make a video about and make into a big production in the middle, and at the ends are just the casual chatting with you all, playing a game, whatever. And I think building more software components around that are going to be the next step. So I think Stream Elements is hitting it home with that right now. I think Atom, which is a plug-in revamp of OBS Studio built by Mr. Greggles, the drum streamer I interviewed, and his team. That thing does crazy shit. Like it controls your lights, it controls DMX, it controls like everything. And it's been too much to wrap my head around just yet. And then stuff like StreamerBot. Like I think that stuff is the future, but making it to where it's much more accessible, or at least we have consultants who pre-build this stuff like production assistants or something like that. I think that's where things are going. Do you think production stuff will lean more towards dedicated hardware or software for existing PCs? I think it's going to be software. I think it's going to be service-based for the most part. I think there's going to be hardware to assist in that. Like I said, teleprompters, whiteboards of some sort, like interactive things. I think, like, and they're going to seem dumb. The backlash from the community is going to be big because it's going to seem like widgets or dumb gimmicky things. But I think kind of interactive things are going to be big. And then I think it's just going to be a matter of like set dressings. Like what can we build a set out of? How can we build a multicam scenario? I don't know if you all were hanging out in the Discord when we talked about BB Jess's stream where she has a whole bunch of camera setting up. That's what I'm working towards now. Like as I'm building out, I've been building this all year since I moved in at the end of 2020. So for over a year now, I've been slowly piecing this together, but I've been trying to brainstorm like what are the pieces that would solve problems I have that could actually turn into tangible products. And I think gear, ironically enough, they're not paying me to say this, although clearly they have sent me things. But gear like the NDI stuff from Bird Dog also represents kind of the future because we need all this stuff to kind of go to one place and not just rely on buying a whole bunch of capture cards and things like that.